I think the U.S. authorities dealt with the crisis much sooner than the European ones. Remember that at the beginning of the crisis, each country in Europe had its own supervisor, and we moved to a single supervision only in 2014. I think since then things are improving. Now the capitalization of the banking system in Europe has improved. There are still, there's still some cleaning up, but I would say, French banks at least are in a good position right now.
There are a lot of concerns about contagion, though. We had Mark Grant on earlier who says that he's very worried about Italy right now. We will see some sort of a resolution, or at least some sort of hint as to what's to come next in the near future politically. How do you view that situation, and what sort of contagion is there?
Well, actually, the Italian spread has gone up to 300 basis points early June, then they have come down. But during this movement, the contagion has been very limited. And I think Mario Draghi has also mentioned that, he's there, and the ECB is there eventually to act.
Meaning what? You think the Italians will eventually go along with the reforms that are being pushed, or you think that...
Well, I think first, if there is a problem in Italy, the contagion to countries like Spain, Portugal, I think will be limited compared to the past. Now, what the Italian government will do, we'll know next week. I think eventually the numbers will not be that scary from the point of view of the budget. I'm more concerned about growth. The problem of Italy is low growth over the last 20 years. And the risk is, coming back on the reforms, backtracking on the reforms that have been implemented by the previous government, which will mean slow growth also for the next few years. That's the big challenge.
Well, I think the bigger challenge politically is if they say, forget it, we're not doing these reforms, what does the EU do at that point?
Well, I think, the EU has no way to oblige Italy to the reforms. The problem is it compatible to have a debt to GDP ratio of 130%? With no growth. Sooner or later, some of the two has to give. So either they continue the austerity, which is not good for the Italian economy, or they implement reforms.
You do worry about the dollar appreciating further, though, right? That's something you are concerned will put additional stress on emerging markets in particular.
Well, from a European point of view, we are not concerned. We're happy that the dollar is going up. I think that's... It helps the ECB. I think it helps the European economy, which is in a soft patch, I would say. Some emerging markets economy have had problems, but I think, the markets is discriminating. There is no contagion there also. So in the end, I think it's normal. The US economy is ahead. The dollar has to appreciate. The Fed is tightening right now while the ECB has more time. So I think it's a normal reaction of a different cycle, a differentiation in the cycle. I wouldn't be surprised.
You mentioned the ECB has more time. How much more time before you think there really is a little more momentum toward any kind of a tightening campaign?
Well, I think the ECB wants to have a clear indication that inflation is close to 2%. The projections now show that it's approaching, but over the next 2 years. So I think as Draghi said, until next summer, probably there won't be any tightening. They will stop QE at the end of this year. And then I think the ECB is in a relatively soft spot. They have to wait for the Fed to tighten further, and then maybe they will follow with some delay.
Lorenzo, what sort of a threat does Brexit pose to a French bank?
Well, actually, for continental banks, we have the optionality. We are in London and we are in Paris, so we can move things relatively easily. It's more complicated for, say, US banks in London or UK banks. They have to make a decision whether they shift people in continental Europe or not. And the more time goes and we don't have an agreement, the more pressure there will be to move people in the continent. I think what happened yesterday is not very good, actually. We have no clear deal.
We talk an awful lot about trade and tariffs and what the impact might be here or in Asia. What are any potential impacts, and how do you guys sit back and kind of watch what's happening here?
Well, I don't think a trade war is very good, but we need to put pressure on China to liberalize. So it's a question of tactics, and avoiding that these tactics gets into really, something really worse for everybody. Right now, markets are not looking at that, but I think if it gets worse, the whole world economy is going to slow down. And the Brexit, I think we're all underestimating the impact of a hard Brexit on the trade between Europe and the UK, the UK is the first partner. The UK for Europe, for continental Europe, is much more important than the US because we are so much integrated. So the fact that they leave with no agreement is going to create some disruption in investment, in trade, and it will, it may create a shock that we are all, I think, underestimating.